Good evening, and thank you for joining me. Tonight, I want to talk with you about the rapid and dramatic economic downturn and what we can and must do to help BC families through these tough times. When the Premier cancelled the fall sitting of the legislature, I went on the road, listening to British Columbians where you live and where you work. Forest workers and their families are worried about their jobs. Small business owners are worried about the price of gas and the lack of tourists. Homeowners are concerned about meeting their mortgage payments and falling house prices. Students wonder how they're going to pay for rising tuition. And seniors are worried about their retirement savings. These problems existed before the stock markets plummeted, but now they're getting worse. A few months ago, I was in Mackenzie, a proud forestry town where almost every job has been lost to mill closures. In Mackenzie, the economic meltdown is more than stock market numbers on the 6 o'clock news. It's a daily reality. In April, they told me the Premier needed to act, but nothing happened. Last week, the Premier finally made a statement, but he offered few specifics and little hope to struggling families. He's still out of touch with your needs. I believe we must do more to help ordinary families through these turbulent economic times. Tonight, I'll offer additional steps that I believe we must take to secure our economy and to help the middle class. These steps are focused on the fundamentals: middle class and small business tax relief, skills training and education, community and green infrastructure, a revitalized forest industry, and getting rid of government waste so we can protect the things that matter to British Columbians: quality health care, education, environmental protection, the fundamental services that far too often end up on the chopping block. Many of these proposals can be acted on today. Others build for the long term. They all share one thing in common: supporting you in difficult economic times. They can all be taken while maintaining fiscal responsibility and balanced budgets. First, tax relief for families and small business. Putting more money in the pockets of average British Columbians and small businesses will help you make ends meet and provide a needed economic stimulus. Last week, the Premier said he would accelerate previously announced middle-class tax cuts. I support that modest proposal, but the Premier didn't deal with the one tax that hits you the hardest: the gas tax. The Premier's new gas tax is hurting families. It's hurting small businesses, and it's making a difficult economic situation even worse. While you pay, big polluters are left off the hook. Everyone needs to play a part to tackle climate change, and we need green alternatives to help people make a difference. If there's one infrastructure program we need first, it's a green infrastructure program that builds transit, that helps average families retrofit their homes. That's my priority, and it's a priority that will create economic activity and green jobs. Without these alternatives, the gas tax fails. The government's own calculations show the gas tax barely makes a dent in greenhouse gas reductions. That's why I will roll back the gas tax and bring in a real climate action plan. That will put $570 million more back in your pockets and back into BC's economy, more than double the Premier's plan. I'll also take action to make life more affordable for average families and to reward hard work by giving BC's lowest paid workers their first raise in 7 years. Second, skills training and post-secondary education. In a highly competitive global economy, people are our greatest resource. The best thing we can do now to strengthen our economy over the long term is to prepare British Columbians for the high-skilled, high-wage green jobs of the future. But the Premier didn't talk about post-secondary education and training in his plan. That's a big omission Education is fundamental. That's why I would end the cuts to college budgets and bring back student grants. I would expand graduate student scholarships and cut student loan interest rates by 50%. That would help make post-secondary education and training an option for all families, regardless of their financial circumstance. It would help our kids get good jobs as the economy turns around. Third, a successful economy also needs modern infrastructure. The Premier promised infrastructure spending, but he offered no specifics. Here's what I'll do. The government promised to fast-track spending to seismically upgrade our schools. They're way behind on that commitment. As a first priority, the government needs to keep its promise to parents and children and get to work fixing high-risk schools. Next, in 2001, the government stopped building new affordable housing. Since then, homelessness has increased by 400%. 400%. You see it every day on the streets of every community in BC. It's tearing at our social fabric. I would start building 2,400 affordable housing units and 1,200 new units every year until every British Columbian has a roof over their head. The money's already been set aside. It's in a housing trust fund in the budget. It's time to put that money to work, to improve our communities and to help stimulate our economy. In addition to affordable housing, we need to accelerate infrastructure spending on transit and green retrofits. Long-term green infrastructure is the lifeblood of the new economy. Providing alternatives to the car will do much more to reduce greenhouse gases than a new gas tax. The government has promised the Evergreen Line almost as many times as it's promised a Surrey hospital. No more broken promises. No more excuses. It's time to get moving. That includes transportation priorities in rural BC, like the long-promised Caribou Connector. And it also includes the community infrastructure gap in cities and towns across BC. There's something wrong when the convention centre is $500 million over budget, while at the same time communities across BC can't get funding for new health clinics, for community centres. Not long ago, I visited Hazelton, BC, home of Canada's first gold medal winner at the Beijing Olympics. They asked why they couldn't get government to fund a desperately needed roof for their hockey arena. That's where the community gathers. It's their one facility. They asked me why the government ignores them. I believe it's because the government has the wrong priorities. Projects that stimulate local economies are my priority, not mega projects with out-of-control overruns.